we got?
Alright, hey, today we are fitting a diesel heater and I'm going to show you how to do it, alright? But I want to show you how the kit comes and a bit of info about where we got it and how much it is and all that sort of thing. So I'll drop a few title screens in below as well to help you out with the info. But let's start. This is how it comes, right? So it all came in this beautiful little box. What we've done, we have got an Eberspacher Airtronic diesel heater, and I'm going to install it, tank on the front, diesel heater under the bed. But this is how it'll come in a box. The fuel tank will come separate. Now, if you're not installing it in a caravan, you probably won't need a fuel tank. If you've got a diesel van or something, you can actually pick up the fuel supply off your fuel tank. But we will have a separate reservoir on the front. This will go under the bed. Now, everything else comes in. You've got ducting, you've got intake, you've got exhaust, you've got fuel line, and you've got a wiring harness, and you've got a little fuel pump. Now, I'll sit down, swing in here a little closer.
Such a small unit.
It is tiny, yeah, and it doesn't weigh much at all. I'll put the specs in below. But you've got a few main components, all right? So let's start. You've got the fuel tank, so you're going to have diesel in that. That will live on the front of the toolbox for us. Then you've got a fuel pump, right? And that'll mount in the chassis rail. Now this is just like pulses diesel from the pump into the heater. Now in here is just like a heating element and a little glow plug style setup. The fuel comes in, it heats up, there's a fan at one end, and it blows fresh air from your van across the heating element and out the other end. Now we all know hot air rises, so as it pumps out, your hot air is going to come up, float down the van because it's forced through with a fan, and they reckon they work really good. I'll talk a bit more about it throughout the video, but first things first, let's get started installing this thing and I'll show you where everything's going to live. Alright, step one, you got to figure out where you're going to mount this thing, right? Now, I reckon in a caravan, your two best options are going to be either under your bed or under your dining table in your sitting area. You just need a bit of space around there so this isn't sort of tight against anything. Remember, it is hot, so you don't want to be like having your airflow against the lino on the floor or anything that's going to get hot or damaged like that. So make sure you got a bit of space around it. For us, under the lounge chair is filled with batteries and chargers, so our next best option is under the bed. So up we go. Now, before we get started, my number one rule, my dad taught me a long time ago, measure twice, cut once, all right? Now that means don't just go that'll do and have at it with a hole saw. Measure it with a tape measure, check it, do a pilot hole if you have to. Make sure you're not going to hit anything when you cut through the floor of your caravan. All right, so what's going to go under the bed is the diesel heater unit, the cowling that goes through the floor. So you do have to cut a hole in the floor to put this through. And then the diesel heater will line up in this cowling like this. There you go. And your intake and your exhaust will come out underneath the van. And you'll silicone this up so you've got a nice, neat fit under your floor. Now, ducting, you're going to have a duct on one end, and then there's another cover to go on here with another duct, and you'll have fresh air coming in, hot air coming out, and you'll duct it around. So my fresh air will come in from one side over here, and the ducted or the hot air will come out up here, and we'll shoot down the van, and we'll have a nice toasty morning.
Hello, quick update. Here we go. Intake clamps are on, screwed to the floor. Exhaust clamps are on, routed out to the muffler, which has a bracket screwed to the chassis rail. And then out the other side, you've got a bit of an exhaust pipe that hangs out and faces backwards. So there you go. That's all that part of it done. Now, I'm going to mount the fuel tank to the front of the toolbox, and then I'll hook up this blue hose from this point here, along the chassis rail to the fuel pump, the metering pump, and then another bit of hose up to the tank. Alrighty, so we're up to the fuel pump, right? Now, this is your metering pump here. All you have to do is plug and play your harness into this side, and then your controller will tell it when it needs to pulse fuel up to your diesel heater. But to do your fuel lines, what you've got is these little black joiners, right? So, and then you've got your fuel line, which is the blue line, and then you've got these little hose clamps. So what you got to do is put a black joiner on either side, like so, right up to the end, and another one on this side, up to here. Now, you got to make sure you put this in line the right way. So read the instructions and it tells you which way the pump needs to go, and it has to go on a certain angle, all right? So make sure you've got the inlet and the outlet in the right direction. Inlet coming from the tank, outlet going to your diesel heater. Anyway, it also comes with this little rubber clamp, and that's what you'll slide the pump into and then screw that brass fitting off to your chassis rail. So there you go. Chuck those on, throw some hose clamps over that side, put another hose clamp on because you'll have to do your blue line, and then your blue line goes from here, and then find a little bit of spit helps it, slide it in till it stops. It'll hit the metal barb on the end of the fuel pump and stop. So you want to make sure that you've got that fuel line as far in as it can go. And there you go. You got your two hose clamps, tighten them up, and she's ready to install. Righto, wiring her up. Now, I'm going to show you where I did it. It's going to be different for each application, okay? So where you put it in your van, or if it's in a caravan or a bus or a van, whatever. But it's super simple. That's what I want to get across to you. So it all comes as a plug and play harness. You've got everything that connects all the pieces from the controller to the unit to the fuel pump, and they're all different fittings. So you can't actually mess it up, okay? They only go together one way. The only thing you'll have to do that requires a little bit of knowledge is pinch some 12-volt power from your system. So for me, lucky I had a spare spot under the seat for our battery system. I'll show you that. I had a spare power coming off a fuse panel. Now I've run that down through the floor, along the chassis rail, and up right below the heater and the control, okay? And then the little controller, what I wanted to do was put it somewhere so when I was in bed and it was cold and Beck goes, I don't want to get out of bed, it's freezing, all I have to do is sneak my little hand out from the covers and turn it on. So I've mounted our little controller over there. I'll talk you through how that works in a minute, but I want to show you the wiring. So like I said, super simple, plug and play harness, comes with enough cable that you don't need any extras, okay? All you need is to pinch some power. So here we go, there's the unit. Here's all the connectors here. It comes with a preloaded fuse box, so you don't even need that. You can just run power straight off your battery to there. And then this little one here, I've clipped up, and that takes us along there and through, and I've mounted the control panel up the back there. That's a super long harness, so you can pretty much run that at the other end of your caravan if you wanted to. There you go, that's all the wiring tucked away in there, plugged together. Super easy, honestly, so easy. All right, I'll fire this thing up and talk you through it. This is me in bed. Just pretend if it's a freezing morning, I sneak my little hand out here. If I hold this for 3 seconds, I'll talk you through the settings. It turns on, right? So that's a good thing, that's one option. You hold it for 3 seconds, it comes on to a preset temperature. I've got it cranked at like 35, so if I press it, I can leave it on for 15 minutes before I get out of bed in the morning to make a coffee, and the van is super toasty. And if the same again, if you press and hold for 3 seconds, it turns it off. So that's super easy while you're in bed. Now, the other things you can do, you can set it as a heat, as a fan. It's also got timers and it's got sleep timers. So here we go, I'll show you. Yes, it's off, heating, there's 37. Let's adjust it to say, I want to leave it on all night. So we've been setting it at like 18 degrees or 19 degrees all night. Hit that. Look at that, 720 minutes or infinite, you can leave it on. I just leave it normally on like 600 minutes. That cranks all night, hit the button, and away she goes. Now the good thing with that is, this is also the temperature sensor for the system. So you can set that as either the controller or the heater. And that way it knows when it hits 18 degrees, which is good for there because the hot air is blowing this way, right? So it's not like it's gonna all of a sudden get down there and turn it off. It waits for the whole van to heat up and then bang, turns it off. And then it's super quiet, it just cuts in and out as needed to hold the van at 18 degrees or 20 degrees, whatever you want, all night. I love it. It's so good, so toasty. And I'll tell you what, it's made our cold mornings and our inland free camps a lot more enjoyable, hasn't it, dear?
Absolutely.
It has.
Absolutely.
No running the generator, no chewing the battery system to use the aircon. It's just
turn it on. I don't know. I can't believe we've never had a
we're
diesel heater
stupid.
before. It is absolutely crazy. We love it.